Hello and welcome to Wrestling and Everything, Coast to Coast, with your host, Buddy Sotelo Esquire, wrestling's premier photographer, Mike Lano, and effervescent Evan Ginsberg. But we do have a very special guest, a guy that's been on 7 times now, 8 times. It's like when you're Saturday Night Live and you're one of those like Steve Martin, and you're a host that like constantly comes on the show, so you're almost like one of our cast members. Ryan Boman, and it's really great to have you on. You were on exactly a year and a week ago, and it's really great. But of course, Mike has something that's burning him right now that he
Well,
has to
yeah,
share
before
with
we get
us.
into all
So,
the pay-per-views, Ryan, I only have about 15 minutes on the show, but um, last week on TNA, last Thursday, was the very first time I saw, and I've been fearing about this, that we're maybe not getting told, and maybe you guys have some other insight as to just how much WWE has their clamps into, or even potentially partial ownership of TNA. The very first time, and it's worrisome, the exact same way on all WWE programming now since Hunter took over, and things have improved, at least creatively, but with the little graphic that shows the announcers, and it says play X play, ring announcer, um, reporter for whoever the phony interviewer is. But that was on TNA, the exact same way WWE or WWE does it on their programming. I see that, and then I start thinking, uh, we know that anybody that comes in contact or does joint dealing, a la TNA or AAA now getting absorbed by it, things are going to skew WWE's way. And at the Triple Mania, as decent as it was, I shot the very first 5 in person. Most of the first 3 were in a Tijuana bullfighting ring outdoors. But their claws were all over that show. It was like every match had somebody in it, which was okay. And thankfully, El Hijo de Kingo won the main event. It wasn't a WWE guy, although we're pretty much hearing that Dominic Mysterio is going to take the strap at the next AAA show on free YouTube. Fine, but TNA, if you look at the TNA's product, more than 60% of all the workers in it are past former WWE and or NXT guys. The 2 TV announcers, WWE guys, Mackenzie Mitchell just came back to TNA after a lengthy working for NXT before she was released. That's worrisome. And in being fair on AEW side, how much are they hurting? They've absorbed and taken Tony Khan with the money. And I'm not criticizing it, and I still haven't watched the pay-per-view, but I was excited about the matches for tonight's hidden door or forbidden door. But how is New Japan is like at the worst level talent pool wise, because everybody good is in AEW, and that's that's fine. They're getting spotlit, and they're some of these guys. Naomi hadn't been on a lot of US TV, especially since the New Japan deal on Access stopped, sadly, for a second time. So, New Japan is left with, having to elevate no names and a lot of guys fresh from the dojo, a few guys remaining, and we'll send them to Keshida or something like that. But CMLL, even worse, they're getting like 1 or 2 pieces of talent, and we've got Hechicero and like tons of lucha guys here and there. I definitely don't see how CMLL is benefiting. New Japan talent bereft, and that just sort of bothers me that this WWE monopoly, like the wording going around, and Meltzer and Brian Alvarez are putting out, it makes sense. Triple H is trying to create his own territory system, except they're all under the WWE wing and they're all beholden to him. And with TKO showing how greedy they are, elevating those ticket prices to where like no blue collar regular good wrestling family is going to be able to afford it, or if they are, they're more, I don't know where they're finding the money, or they're mortgaging the house to go to that. And then fans themselves are going to have to pay for all of these different streamers now with the ESPN starting not next year but now way early with this pay-per-view they're throwing together. They don't even have a card yet, just to F with Tony Khan's show like they did tonight and like they did the last pay-per-view, etc. Are you guys in agreement? Does it concern you that, we're going to be, but WWE doesn't have competition like when, they put WCW out of business and kind of ECW, just kind of sizzled and fizzled and burned. But, they weren't meant to stay around for a long time. They just went out in a blaze of glory or what have you. They had no competition until TNA, little TNA came about, but it was like at the worst creative period. It was just whatever made Vince happy, the audience of one thing that his talent workers were performing for. And I'm afraid it'll be like that because not all at Triple H's, many of his things like the Cena turn have flopped miserably, and they had to make a very awkward, Cena just turning in the span of like a couple of minutes back and thinking, oh, yeah, everybody's going to forget about it. We'll just put it in the back of our minds. You can't treat people with stupidity because they're going to view a product as stupid. Things are just a little bit concerning. I'm going to have to watch, Evan and I are going to have to watch, maybe you guys, I don't know. Ryan, did you watch the whole pay-per-view yet?
Today's Triple Mania or?
Well, no, Triple Mania finally saw it. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like the AAA shows that I saw that were just packed with lots of matches, lots of talent going past midnight. But today's Forbidden Door, and then, I mean, you're going to make wrestling fans burned out if you try to F with them by putting your NXT pay-per-view on like immediately after. People have lives. It's Sunday. They want to go to church or they want to go to the beach or have some fun, get away from the heat. They don't want to sit in the house all day and watch, two things of wrestling. And then, like a daytime. I mean, for us, it was 8 a.m. when the pre-show started for Forbidden Door. It's in California. So let me know if you guys are on the same wavelength or if you have differences of opinion and think maybe it's not as bad as I'm making it out to be. Because when you're effing up international promotions and you're stealing Stardom women, and I'm pointing the finger at both big companies. It troubles me.
Well, I will say this, and I went out, as soon as I saw Triple Mania, the first thing I said is, this is not going to work. I mean, I don't think. I mean, to American fans, Lucha Libre will be like a shiny toy for a little while, and then I don't think it translates to our audience, and I don't think it ever has. And before people throw out names like Rey Mysterio, well, that's a 1 in a million guy. For the most part, luchadors haven't fared well or been main event stars in the United States. At the same time, talking about how the production values and stuff have changed, let's not forget a lot of the people in production in WWE came from TNA. You've got people like Abyss and Jeremy Borash and a lot of people that have migrated over. So there is a lot of cross-pollination between the two promotions. I honestly do believe eventually WWE will probably absorb TNA also. I mean, I don't know how much of an interest they have in, or what kind of stake they may have in the actual intellectual properties there. But I am like you. I find it. I'd really rather have a variety rather than just have two big companies dictating, hey, this is our style and this is their style, and there is no other style that you guys need to see. Don't worry about it.
But no matter what, Ryan, let's say the WWE does take over TNA, okay? Another Fed will grow up out of this. It's a Hydra that is not.
Well, there are others though, Russ. We have Billy Corgan's NWA. We have GCW.
Exactly.
There's quite a few.
MLW is great.
But to me, the tragedy of all of this is that TNA is finally putting on some good matches. They've been putting on good shows. I mean, there was a while that TNA, I was like thinking, there's no way it's going to survive. And it just barely did. But now they're getting back on their feet. They're becoming, I think, at least as far as the booking goes, I think I've enjoyed them more than a lot of AEW shows of recent. Head to head, I've enjoyed the TNA booking more than I've liked the AEW booking.
You're just seeing too much WWE talent amongst those matches. AJ Styles came in, but he didn't wrestle. He just was there to sort of lend his credibility to their new X Division champ, which was great, an emotional moment, and that's what wrestling's about, is moments. But, the matches, it seems too WWE like. There's too many WWE people in there to where it almost feels like farm system. Or when you let go of someone like Dana Brooke and she becomes Ash by Elegance, and they end up having to reinvent themselves there. Well, that's a positive for some of them.
Evan,
Or
your thoughts? What you were about to say?
I was at the TNA pay-per-view. I was sitting there and sitting there and sitting there and sitting there for 6 hours to watch three quality matches. And I don't know. I wasn't wildly impressed. And I thought the main event, the fans desperately wanted Mike Santana to win the belt because he's like a local hero who's paid his dues. And, they should have ended it with the Hardys winning the belt because at least the fans would have, walked out happy instead of walking out unhappy after 6 long hours. And they drew 7,000 people, and WWE and the hype machine, of course, were spinning it like they sold out Pontiac Stadium. But, after 20 years, if 7,000 is your biggest crowd, it was a mixed bag, the whole thing. And I was watching AEW, and I happen to like AEW, but you have a lot of great wrestlers having okay and good and very good matches and very few great matches and on today's pay-per-view. So it's a whole lot of hype and entrances and sing-alongs and catchphrases and commercials and everything else. And as far as great matches for all of them, I mean, SummerSlam was 2 days. There were 2 great matches spread over 2 days. The tickets are obscene, the prices. They're getting $70,000 WrestleMania packages next year. $70,000. And
you get a chair.
I don't know.
You get a chair.
What's that?
You get an autographed chair.
Yeah,
only in the first three rows. And I heard the next pay-per-view on U.S. soil, $6,000 for a row in the 8th or a seat in the 8th section.
Wow. But Ryan,
even AEW, their next pay-per-view in New Jersey, they're getting close to $1,000 for ringside, 900 and change for ringside. There's nothing today that warranted $900+ Nothing. I'm sorry. And I'm an AEW fan. It's absurd.
But it's all pro sports now. It's all pro sports and all like events. All theater tickets. Ryan, you're gonna
kill the golden. Yeah. You're gonna kill the golden goose at some point because the WWE fans are rebelling at this point. And I'm not the only one saying this.
I think the ESPN streaming deal is like the last straw. It's like, why do you have every single show or to watch the pay-per-views or the old stuff? You have to have like Peacock and ESPN, all these streamings. And for some, their cable or satellite system or whatever they get their stuff on isn't participating. So they might be shelling out as
I'm
as
not
high
going
as
to be able to watch. Comcast isn't going to be carrying. Well, they'll probably make some deal at the last second. But Ryan, what's your thought? Because you're with Sports Illustrated. You're
Ryan's going to pick us up 4 $70,000 packages for WrestleMania.
Well, I mean, you guys just said it. It's pro sports and pro wrestling are all the same. Just like the average family can't go to a Major League Baseball game anymore or an NFL game. It's definitely not the Super Bowl. I mean, that's comparable to some of the WrestleMania numbers you hear. At the same time, the streaming service thing, unfortunately, that's also something we're starting to see with pro sports and pro wrestling as well. The days of clicking on ESPN and just watching a baseball game are over. Now you have to have a regional cable package to see your favorite, a regional sports package add-on for $15 extra to see your favorite local sports teams. And then let's say you've got a streaming service. I have no idea. I think we've got 5 different streaming services at our house right now, and I know we don't watch them enough to justify it, but it's just the point of all the good content is spread out on so many different services that you find yourself at the end of the month. You might have a $80 basic cable bill or basic streaming bill, but then when you do all the add-ons, it adds up to like $200. So
And
yeah, I
and
mean,
the
the
thing,
average fans are just shut out
well,
eventually.
the thing that I'd also like to point out is that people go and they sign up for these streaming services, right? And let's say, like the WWE, they have a 5-year deal. So people sign up for these streaming packages, but then 5 years later, the WWE decides to go to a different service. And this
Well, they're
service
maximizing their
hopping.
tentacles. It's not just going from Peacock to ESPN, it's multiple. I don't really blame WWE so much as TKO. The minute they
Right.
purchased and lumped UFC in with WWE, the greed kind of came out. I mean, they're maximizing every dollar. And the school of thought, like from Bully Ray, Bubba Dudley, who wisely said, well, when they start seeing merch sales go down, etc., they know they got to lower prices because it'll come to a boiling point where people are just going to say, no, enough.
We're selling a Finn Balor doll for $100. This Demonito or whatever.
The puppet, the
$100
little,
for
the
a
little
puppet.
felt puppet for over $100.
So
Yeah.
let me just say this quickly. WWF and WWF was a blue collar thing, and you would take the family every month. They ran Madison Square Garden 12 to 14 times a year. Now they'll run Madison Square Garden, WWE. They'll run it 3 or 4 times a year. And it's always December 26th because it's a Christmas present. Then it becomes a birthday present, a graduation present, because it's hundreds and hundreds of dollars, if not thousands. So when a family of 4, I keep seeing it all over social media, parents going, I can't afford to take my kids to WWE anymore. I don't have $500 to go out for an evening. And I understand that. So at some point, it's going to hurt their audience. And I also think that when you're in a baseball stadium or whatnot, a football stadium for a big WWE pay-per-view, they can't all be rich. Somebody's maxing out their credit card. It's an addiction for some. It's like a religious pilgrimage. Some people are going to get into financial trouble with this. I think that's the next thing you're going to start hearing.
Ryan, let me ask you this one. Because WWE has basically eliminated house shows, and AEW doesn't really have house shows apart from just TV and the premium live events, pay-per-views. Maybe that's a factor in jacking up the prices because it was cost prohibitive, according to them, to do the house shows just for the audience where the younger talent could get reps and get acquainted with stuff. But so that seems to be one of the causative problems there. And people are losing out. Like people could go, to your Dinktown, or I remember in the 70s, a Roll-A-Rama Arena. It had much smaller arenas. Vince Sr. would, rather than MSG and Nassau Coliseum if you were in the New York tri-state area. And those are all gone. And it's sad because those were the really affordable ones. And you could get close to talent, and it was a much more personal experience. And now to me, it just feels all corporate and monetized to the max.
I live in a town very close to Carbondale, Illinois, where the Southern Illinois University, that's where I went to college. And they did a house show there not too long ago. Seats for front row were $100. It was just $100. Okay, that for a show, and you're going to get set front row. Okay, $100 I can see. All right, if it's something special or something you really want to go to. But like Evan was saying, I mean, when you're talking about, taking out a second mortgage on your house so you can go to WrestleMania, that's just completely out of line. And I will throw this back to you guys, but the shame of that is really, and I hate to sound like, oh, it's all about the kids and all that stuff, but probably one of the greatest moments of my life was the first time walking into the arena in St. Louis, holding my dad's hand, 9 years old, and everything that was so small on TV was just larger than life, right? And for a kid, that experience sticks with them forever, and that's what makes people fans forever. So, like, talking about killing the golden goose, taking families out of wrestling and that generational, passing it down from one generation to the next thing in professional wrestling, we may see less of that because families simply can't afford to attend the shows.
But Ryan, let me give you a counterpoint. Maybe the next generation just gets used to not seeing anything live. Just
Yeah.
understands that it's just the people that go to live events are just these elites, and the common people don't go to live events. Because I got to tell you, the number of live events that my kids have gone to see are minimal at best. I'm sorry to sound like a bad dad,
No,
but
but as a
but my
father,
kids don't
you're the
want to
father
go.
here. I don't know if Ryan's a dad, but
Wait, hold on,
Yep.
hold on.
well, I'm throwing into Taylor Swift tickets are astronomical.
I
What
know,
Yeah.
kid?
and that's the thing is my kids don't want to go. They hear that these tickets are thousands of dollars, and they're like, Dad, we don't want you to spend, what would be, our vacation money on taking us to a 49er game, for example. They don't want, to give up what could be like a week stay at some other place just to go to one basketball game. Okay, so kids are beginning to start saying or realizing, can my parents sacrifice this, or do we sacrifice this as a family just so we can go out for one night? We could go to a week somewhere, for what it would cost, and kids are beginning to understand that, and they're not expecting it anymore. And so maybe the next generation doesn't even go to stuff like this; they just watch it on TV because they're not even used to seeing it live. I know that's a sad thing, but I'm just talking as a father here, and I know Ryan, you've got kids, right?
Kids and grandkids.
Yeah, and grandkids. So yeah, you're seeing it from that perspective. Let me throw that back to you, Ryan. What's your thoughts?
Well, again, like you said, it may be a situation where people just adapt to, hey, we stay home and watch it, and we're it's just easier that way. At the same time, I mean, look at it like you would shopping malls. When I was a teenager, that's where everybody wanted to go on the weekend, was the mall and hang out and all that stuff. Well, now malls are dead because people would rather just shop from the comforts of their own home. And maybe that's what's going to happen with spectator sports and pro wrestling. I mean, maybe, as you said, the common man just says, that's not for me. That's too rich for my blood. So I'll just watch it at home on TV for $30 or whatever. To be honest with you, I'm more comfortable. I've sat front row at some of these WWE shows and the house shows. The seats are so narrow, you're practically in the person next to you's pocket. I mean, that's how close you are to other people.
Well,
so
the average wrestling fan is not exactly the slimmest individual. If you were to just
It's not
take
the
Well, I
it.
can't
smartest.
say anything. Hey, I'm 6'3" and 265, so I'm a
Yeah.
big guy myself. You know what I'm saying? So but at the same time, if I'm gonna pay that much money to sit in the front row, I'd like to have a chair that my butt fits in. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, but yeah, I mean, it's just unfortunate that I guess that's the trend and it's going that way. But again, I grew up listening to cassettes and LPs, and now you can just stream
And the
anything online.
radio.
There's no physical
And the
media anymore.
and you
Shopping
listen to the
malls are gone.
radio. And you listen
Yeah,
to the radio.
yeah. I
Let me,
mean, it's
I've
just
got to
the
go,
way of the
but
world, I guess.
Ryan, I want to throw this to you and Evan. When I was a kid shooting from the late 60s on, and then got to work for the Olympic Auditorium and all that stuff. But everywhere I went around the US and outside Canada and Japan, the TV tapings were always free. You never paid the way you do from whenever Raw started. I guess that was one of the big starts. I don't know if WCW was charging, in '91. I'm not sure if they were. They weren't for Georgia Championship Wrestling, but where you grew up, it sounds like you were on the border. You were bordering Illinois and like Missouri, to
Yeah.
where you were going to the Kiel. Uh, Now, Wrestling at the Chase, as I mentioned, that the tapings were Saturday, and when Kiel was Friday, if memory serves, because I shot X amount of shows there. Did you get to go to Munchnick's promotion or Matisic when it
No,
was?
no. Sam
You're much
retired
younger.
in 1980, and I would have been 5 years old then. I didn't attend.
Okay.
My first show was actually this was after Starrcade '83, the first Starrcade had happened, and Flair defended the title against Harley in St. Louis. So at 9 years old in 1984, that was my
Nice.
first experience. And the funniest thing I say is I didn't even realize at the time, like, my first time going, I'm getting to watch two of the greatest of all time. You know, you don't realize that when you're a kid, but then when you go back, oh, well, that was a pretty cool experience. That was my first time going, you know. So yeah, mostly we grew up closer to St. Louis. I moved further south a few years ago, so I'm more down towards the bottom of the state these days. But yeah, St. Louis area, and I mean honestly, it's always, even after Sam Muchnick was gone, the foundation he built here just made this a wrestling city. You know, I mean, it was, St. Louis is just a wrestling town, and they do very well when any WWE or AEW comes here. But you know,
What
again,
about when Billy Corgan comes in with when he did that? I think twice in a row. I forget
at the
what shows that
Chase,
he had, the Crockett Cup there, something to that extent. I'm hoping it sounded like he did well. Yeah, I don't know if they're returning, because you just don't hear, even though they got better TV, the weekly TV, they're they don't have the buzz that they really should, and they have, you know, really great roster. Natty Neidhart raved about the female that she worked with there as world champion. Do you remember what the rest of the card was? So you got to see Harley and Flair. Do you remember any of your first show, the rest of the matches?
I don't have the program anymore, but I'm sure I could find it if I looked. I mean, I could find the card if I looked it up. It was, again, you could see it was kind of those return matches with him and Harley, I think, after. And I guess after '84, I'm not sure how long. I guess Harley just kind of went back to Kansas City after that. I'm not sure. I know that he bought into the St. Louis promotion, you know, when
Yeah,
everything kind of
he'd
fell
had it
apart
for a
here.
long time with O'Connor and Geigel,
Yeah.
splitting that. And then the weird thing when Muchnick retires and Pat O'Connor buys it, instead, Sam's like right hand guy, at least in terms of creating a first class program, doing some ring announcing, but doing mostly the play by play, you know, Mickey and Joe Garagiola and Sam Mineker. I mean, Muchnick had like the best ring announcers ever. So, you know, not Jimmy Lennon quality that I had in LA, but he had amazing people. I mean, you know, Joe Garagiola is not bigger than the Major League Baseball player and host of the Today Show and all that stuff. And his brother Mickey taking over for him, and
Mhm.
but then
And Mickey, everybody in town knew Mickey.
yeah,
Everybody in St. Louis has a Mickey Garagiola story.
uh,
He was a
it
character.
was nice because Evan came and helped me. When Sam was, you know, ailing and before he passed, in what was it, May of '91 or '92, I spent 14 months putting together the Sam Muchnick tribute 3-day weekend for the boys. And then we let in fans, and it was pretty amazing because I had Jack Lanza at WWE. When I begged them to send talent, he brought in all these guys, Backlund and Ted DiBiase, and helped get Killer Kowalski there and quite a few others. And then during the day, Wyndham and Rotunda and Kurt Hennig, and WCW sent us a couple of folks. And then we had all of these guys, and they all, I'd seen stuff going back to the late 60s WFAA convention. So I gleaned like what not to do and what to do, like the 3-4 Weekend of Champions in New York I covered. And Evan was with me at a bunch of those things. So because I threw it for Sam, and all proceeds were going to benefit his arthritis foundation, all the boys from my lead MCs of Lou Thez and Red Bastien and on, trans themselves in, put themselves up. I wasn't out a dime or anything like that. We had 2 awards night, you know, dinners one after another for the 3 days. And it was because of the boys and the fans' respect for Muchnick that we did so well. You know, you didn't really see that hardly anywhere, but for somebody like Sam and you know, to see like all of the late Bobby Shane, his entire family came, and the entire Pat O'Connor family came, and oh yeah, Lanza brought Backlund down too. You know, very important guys to St. Louis history. So, Evan, you were there. It's a unique city, and I wish more of the footage was available. You know, I know Matisic had X amount before we lost Larry, but those cards were stellar. I mean, I always rave about how much I love the Chicago Amphitheater and seeing the riots there. I don't know if you were blessed well, you may not have been able to go there before they razzed the amphitheater, but Kiel Auditorium was those cards top to bottom. To see in an opener one of those 6 shows I shot at Kiel, Bobo Brazil and Dick the Bruiser teaming in the friggin' opener. And I think the main event was Harley Race defending against Rocky Johnson. Just stellar cards up and down. And I think that was the one where Ric Flair and Ken Patera were flying in from Mid-Atlantic on Crockett's jet, but they were late. And the minute they get there, Bruce or Brody in the back just gave them shit, absolute shit for being late and not being respectful of the rest of the locker room by being late. It really wasn't their fault, but the locker room backstage and in ring, the product was stellar. It was just amazing stuff. Evan, I always try to pluck memories out of you, but I think we had a pretty good time, and there was like all the loyal St. Louis fans, decades. It was pretty kind of neat. Oh, Evan's audio is off. Russ, can you bring up Evan's audio?
No, he has to turn it on himself. Evan?
We just can't hear you.
Yeah.
Maybe Ed can't hear us.
Now it's muted. Now to turn it back on. Uh-oh. You might have to disconnect and reconnect.
I heard him for a sec.
I guess we lost.
I think we're having technical difficulties here.
All right, I'm gonna leave you guys. Ryan, great to see you.
Good to see you, Mike.
Love Illinois. Had so much fun there. Some of the, I forget. No, I think we had to go over to Illinois for the great strip clubs after the shows, but
that would be correct. Yeah.
Well, Missouri is like
the bridge.
But I'll leave you with this. Sam Munchnick, with his relationship, originally he was a sports writer for baseball, and his relationship with legitimate sports in the St. Louis area, I think that was why he had the legitimacy and the respect, and the fact the product he put on, like Eddie Graham's in Florida, athletic based to where you just could not tell. And, like all of the greatest guys in the world, Kiniski, Johnny Valentine, Harley from his early start. I mean, everybody. Bockwinkel would just come in with Ray Stevens and Heenan. Tremendous territory. Athletic second to none. Russ, or anybody, if you've not seen St. Louis wrestling, just YouTube it. It's free. You'll be blown away. Like one of the greatest tag matches I saw on this planet, Jack Briscoe and Gene Kiniski against Dory and Terry Funk at at Wrestling at the Chase. Free TV.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting that you say that I should do that. I'm actually doing my own little video pilgrimage. I'm watching the IWA from 1975.
Eddie Einhorn. That, speaking of Munchnick, because I worked for Einhorn as a photographer, and I shot at those 3 outdoor Roosevelt Stadium, New Jersey spectaculars. The first one in the rain, the one and only time Moskowitz against Koloff, or at least the first between those two, for Moskowitz's title. But Eddie Einhorn, when that promotion came out of when Ann Gunkel took on the NWA in Atlanta, and after 2 years of outdrawing them, she finally threw in the towel monetarily because, the Atlanta office had Bill Watts and Eddie Graham from Florida helping their bookers there, like Tom Ernesto and Leo Garibaldi. And the IWA they took over her ring and started doing the tapings there early in the parts of Georgia where Ann Gunkel had done her TV and her house shows. And then it grew into this thing, and Eddie Einhorn, who was, as Ryan probably knows, was co-owner of the White Sox, Chicago White Sox, and a gazillionaire and super nice guy who I inducted into Cauliflower Alley's thing. I gave him his speech because we were so close. But he was the money mark for the IWA, and he said, kind of Herb Abrams-esque, that he wanted to take on Sam Munchnick's NWA and Vince Sr.'s Tri-WF, which was kind of insane. He kind of lasted for about 2.5 years, did his TV eventually at the historic Beacon Theater in New York City that Evan, I think, went to a few of those shows. The only meeting singles match between Thez and Mil Moskowitz there was for Moskowitz's IWA title. Russ, it may be on
that
this.
He still has.
He never gave it back. I asked Einhorn about that, and he goes, "Oh, what the F." This was like 15 years ago when I inducted him, and he said that. But a decade later, so he blew through a shitload of money, pardon my French, in 75 through 77, early 78 for the IWA. 10 years later, he was the money mark before Pro Wrestling America, which mainly had shows in the Meadowlands and the Northeast,
also a huge waste of money.
combining NWA and AWA talent.
Yeah, I remember
Spectacular cards. You'd have like an AWA and an NWA title defense on the same card, which was unheard of. But because the different promoters they all wanted to be, head grand poobah, they weren't getting along. Like it was like the thing in Dallas where you had Fritz and Jerry Jarrett and Bill Watts. Bill Watts threw in the towel. He goes like Crockett is out for himself and he's trying to steal AWA talent. That's what Greg Gagne verified too. So these guys all they're trying to defeat Vince, but they couldn't get together for a couple of nights out of the month. It was,
Well, so we're seeing kind of the same thing going on now.
But are you enjoying the IWA? Because it was just fun. All squash crap matches. Maybe occasionally every 3 weeks they would have a decent match between named talent. But I'm
finding watching the collected works of Joe Turco to be actually very fascinating. I'm watching more Joe Turco matches than I think I've ever watched.
And he was a Vince Senior guy who came over. The crazy thing about that IWA is Victor Rivera is Vince Senior's tag champs in 75 with Dominic DeNucci, and he decides to go for more money, and he never ended up on. So Rivera left, and Vince Senior had to think quickly, and he put Irish Pat Barrett to replace him with Dominic DeNucci as tag champs. Rivera never did get on Einhorn's TV. Ivan Koloff, that first huge, after doing a lot of TV for Einhorn, IWA, quit after the match with Moskers in the rain because I think it was Pedro Martinez who was booking with George Crybaby Cannon and Al Costello, the Kangaroos, stiffed him on what he was supposed to have gotten. Gino Brito and Dino Bravo left Vince Sr. for the IWA. They came back with their tails turned, like Ernie Ladd and Koloff and Dick Bulldog Brower, so many others. Ev, what do you remember? Let's ask Ev what he remembers, because he was watching the IWA when it started, pretty much the whole run. Did you enjoy the TV run ever? What'd you think of the IWA?
Yeah, I saw him live. I saw Victor Rivera against Ernie Ladd at the Beacon Theater, the Love Brothers, Tex McKenzie.
It was a good one. Don't forget the Mongols. Don't forget the Mongols.
Yeah, well, I didn't see the card I went to. I didn't see them, but they were good promotion. And but even back then, WWF was keeping them out of the major buildings like Madison Square Garden, and they never did like competition. So I see Ryan has a cat. I have two cats.
Yeah, it's cat.
Yeah, this is a first for the show. My cat's making a cameo appearance. He just wanted to get on camera, I think.
What's your cat's name?
Bubby.
Hold him up.
Sometimes they don't like to be held up. They're a little different than dogs.
He looks like he's a ham. What a cute guy. I love orange tabbies.
He's a daddy's boy, so he's probably wondering why I'm still up so late.
Very nice.
And you guys, and Evan and Ryan, can you get your animals to watch wrestling, or do they just leave the room?
He'll watch it on
porn. They only like porn. They don't. I'm joking.
All right, you guys have a great rest of the show. Ryan, great to see you.
Good to see you this week.
Great to see you, Mike.
Good night, everybody.
All right, Mike.
All right, so now, without having to go through Sam Muchnick in his history, Ryan, tell us what you've been up to for the last year. You haven't had a chance to talk about yourself at all, so let's find out about your life.
I didn't come on for shameless self-promotion, but no, actually just recently, at the beginning of August, I started with a division of Sports Illustrated called On SI, which is the digital media. We supply digital media content. So, you won't see me in the magazines, I don't think. Anyway,
what magazines? I haven't seen the magazine in, 20
I'm not
years.
Sure. And, the funny thing is I do know, I know that SI went through some changes the last couple of years, but I'm not really even privy to everything that went on there. All I know is I applied thinking there's no way this is going to work out for me. And then sure enough, a week later I was there and I, again, I'm still a contract writer, so I'm not a full-fledged employee of sport. I'm not, on the board of directors or anything.
When you are, though, you can expect my resume to come your way. And
I always tell her, I've been telling like friends of mine, if there's a totem pole there, I'm the guy at the very bottom, probably. So, but I love what I'm doing now.
You're the dirt underneath the totem pole.
That could be it too. Or but the thing is that I'm, it's taken me away from pro wrestling now because it's mostly just baseball right now. But I'm sure I'll kick up some stories somewhere down the road. I've got so many friends that own websites. A lot of times, we'll just get a hold of them and say, hey, I just feel like writing something.
Next year in the spring, I got to have you and Benny Scala, a couple other guys on for my all baseball show, my one all baseball show that I do. Except that as a Giants fan, I'm glad I didn't have an all baseball show this year.
I covered the Giants. Did you know that the Giants are one of the teams that are my Giants and Phillies?
My sincerest apologies.
My apologies to their fans because this has been, and I just wrote, this has been a bad luck year. They should have been better this year, but at the same time, they've had injuries. The pitching staff's been all over the place, and it's, I feel for their fan base because I really expected a lot more out of them this year. And then when they got Devers, I thought, well, maybe that's a step
that would have been in the right direction. It's all fallen apart from that point. But the interesting thing is that as a Giants fan, I'm going to petition the league that if we get any All-Stars next year, that they don't go to the game, that they accept the honor and then decline or like pretend they have an injury or they got sick or something and they can't go. Because as a Giants fan, I know that I've left Evan far in the dust here. He doesn't care at all about baseball.
We got to get back on the wrestling topic.
No, but I can. Since you cover the Giants, I just have to get this off. That when the Giants have gone to the All-Star game, when they come back from the All-Star game, they have fallen to pieces, and that's the Atlee Hammaker curse. The curse of Atlee Hammaker from 1984. That's what happened to Atlee Hammaker. He went to the All-Star game, got shelled in the All-Star game. From that point forward, the Giants just completely went into the dumpster and had one of their worst seasons ever. And that's the same thing that happened in 2015. It's happening now this year. And okay, I have to just say it, but I still want things to work out for Buster Posey. I really love that guy. He's a guy that a lot of fans really care about. And, he's going to get into the year, but I'm not sure Melvin is going to make it through next year if they start off like 5-20 or something like that. His leash is very short. So anyway, getting you back to what you're up to. So you're doing Sports Illustrated. What else what are you doing?
I covered Jacksonville Jaguars for Fansided, which is also owned by the same company that owns SI. And I'm doing stuff with some people that I knew in radio in St. Louis. They bought the all sports station, but they kind of flipped the format to be general talk, sports in the morning, general talk in the afternoon, that type of thing. They do have a weekend wrestling show that's on now too as well. And I just write the Tuesday column there for KLIS, the Lou information station. And it helps me kind of stay back connected with St. Louis because, I love where I live now. But there are things I miss about living in, up around the city and everything's right there. You don't have to drive an hour to get to something, But I just, with everything I have going on with sports right now, pro wrestling's kind of taken a back seat, but in a way that, it's been positive for me. And also I've been able to get back and just be a fan. Watch it just for the fun of it. I don't have to worry about what I'm going to say or how I'm going to analyze.
Now you get my sympathies again. You have to cover the Giants. You have to cover Jacksonville, and you're now rejoining wrestling as a fan when it's probably the toughest time to be a fan of professional wrestling.
I think I'll always enjoy.
Don't be a Niners fan because I need something in my life to go right, and it seems like everything you're joining up right now is hitting like the iceberg. They're veritable. Well, Jacksonville has been hitting icebergs since they expanded, but they're an expansion team. But it's tough to be a fan, to get back in as a fan right now. I mean, as Evan was pointing out, there's 6-hour shows with 2 or 3 good matches in them.
Yeah.
And it's an endurance contest. Evan, I'll bring you back into the talk now that I'm done with my baseball. So
I'm going to the Mets on Wednesday, and the ticket is $50. That's reasonable, I
Yes.
suppose. And I'm going to the Mets minor league team on Friday, the Cyclones, and that's dirt cheap. And minor league baseball is an option if you just like the game of baseball. But I'm a big basketball fan, and when the Knicks were in the playoffs and they were asking the $800+ in the nosebleeds, no, thank you. So
Same
back
thing
to
with us
that.
and the Warriors. Yeah, it's the same thing with us and the Warriors. And they haven't, won a title since 22, but that doesn't mean they aren't charging for championship type prices for everything. And you don't even have a basketball team in St. Louis, but you got, your baseball stuff, and obviously that's a huge cats. They know how to get your attention.
Yeah.
I think the simplest thing at this point is some people just don't have that kind of money and they just can't go, and it's not a big decision process. If it costs $500 to take the wife and 2 kids to a WWE show, in bad seats, then they're just going to say, I can't do it. But, the majority of folk. And
But I think you make a good point that there are some people that don't have that control, and they're so into the WWE or AEW that they're gonna, put themselves in debt. It's so easy to get credit. I'm sure there's gonna be eventually a WWE like the bank of the WWE. If the things keep going forwards, and people
Yeah.
will just go and get a loan from the bank of the WWE and be paying 30% every year to pay off their WrestleMania seats and tickets
You're
and
gonna put it
stuff.
on their WWE credit card or the card through the company. So that's crazy,
you
but
could meet
that's not that far fetched.
you can
Go ahead,
meet
Evan.
Dominic Mysterio for $1,150, and they'll throw in a lanyard. A lanyard that's actually in the advertising. It's reached the point of absurdity.
Yeah, and sports isn't far behind, and other entertainment like Taylor Swift, and I mean Mike mentioned Taylor Swift and how insane those tickets were, and as I said, I the way you're hopefully a trendsetter, Evan, by championing like independent acts and independent wrestling and so forth. Although you don't want to go to that's one thing though. I mean, Evan, you don't want to mention the promotion. I understand that's fine, but you went to a show yesterday that didn't even have a ring.
I got to an indie show. There was no ring, so that's a basic. You need the wrestlers and a ring, and maybe
Yes.
a bell to ring. So
Not even that. You can use a cell phone that has the bell, the simulated, because I've done that before, where you have to
okay.
have the cell phone do the actual bell ringing. But I mean, that's the one thing is that when you go to indies, you really don't have, unless you really know that indie. If it's the first time, you could be going to see really bad backyard garbage wrestling. If you
Well, they
don't,
had that MMA guy try to kill one of the wrestlers this weekend.
Yeah,
yeah.
I just saw that clip this morning. It was a Rampage Jackson's son, and I mean he was laying him in. Those weren't potatoes. That was the whole vegetable garden he was hitting him with. I mean, he didn't. He just was. I don't know if he snapped or he was on something, hyped up on something or what. But I mean, that was ridiculous. That's assault. He should be arrested and sued. I mean,
Nobody ever
everybody
sued New
knows it's a
Jack
form.
for what he did. No one ever sued New Jack for what he did. What he did to a mass transit or whatever, that kid.
Yeah, I can't
Well,
even
meanwhile,
watch that.
that rapper in WWE hurt Cody Rhodes. So, if you're not trained, you can't get in a wrestling ring. And
And on the other side of the coin, you have Logan Paul, who has to, can't even like throw a punch within like a foot and a half of John
Logan Paul's
Cena.
not a bad wrestler. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
but
not
have you
Great
heard the
athlete.
latest?
celebrities.
Have you heard the latest? They had to reshoot the angle because he like did it. They did it sideways, and they showed like him missing John Cena by like a foot and a half. So they had to
Hey, what What a coincidence. That's how his brother wins all of his boxing matches. Phantom
Yes.
punches.
Yes, exactly. It does make you wonder about how that all happens. I'm not going to be spending any money for any Mike Tyson rematches coming up soon. But so are you like so now that you're back to being a fan, like do you like ever contribute to any websites, or do you ever like write anything? You know, do you ever just give your input or anything like that, or are we getting like an exclusive to get you back on a podcast here?
Well, I mean, I'm not I'm not affiliated with any wrestling websites now, and I have my own blog, I guess, if I wanted to write some stuff, but as of right now, I mean, my schedule's so busy, I mean, I have 3 jobs, so it's like, even if one of them's only one day a week, but it's kind of, for me, it's kind of a relaxing, it's a release. It's almost like now the stuff that used to irritate me, the little things that used to irritate me, now I'm able to just kind of step away and say, okay, I can let that go. I mean, I was never a guy who liked the goofy comedy stuff, but the older I get, I see there's room for humor in wrestling if it's done properly, if it's actually funny, or if it's clever. The
Bingo.
problem is that we've had so much sophomoric humor, which
That's
we can blame
that's
Vince
the
and
point. That's
the Vince is on
exactly
for that.
it. Sophomoric is not even the right term. Infantile
Yeah.
is where you're getting to some of the angles. I mean, some of the angles are stuff that even my teenagers, I've told them about, and they're like, "That's stupid, Dad. Why do they think that's something anyone would care about? Why is that something that they would think anyone would be, moved about?" And my teenagers are not wrestling fans. They just and it's not that they're pacifists or anything like that. They like watching Marvel movies or whatever. It's not a matter of not liking stage violence, because my kids would never grow up like disliking stage violence. I would kick them out of the house if they did. You've got to at least watch something that's staged if you're going to be in my house. But no, they like regular movies and sci-fi and stuff like that. But a lot of that stuff is also sort of leaving them cold if it doesn't have some sense of originality to it. They've like maxed out on all the X-Men and Avengers and so forth movies. They're really like, they see those, like when my daughter saw Black Adam, she was like, after 45 minutes, she's like, I've seen enough. I don't care one bit about like what's going on with the story here. There was not, and she's like, I've seen it all before in all the other movies. I mean, these are 13-year-olds. So my daughter's 12 when she saw Black Adam, and she'd already quote unquote seen it all. So, you're in trouble when like the next generation is telling you like they're only youths and they're already jaded on what's being given to them. Like my kids hated the Minecraft movie. That's supposed to be for them. Let alone, I don't know if you watched it yourself. It's a freaking car wreck. It's awful. It's just 45 minutes in, you really are like, I know I'm old and I'm not, this isn't my demographic, but just on a pure like storytelling level, you're like, I have no idea what's going on. You're like, and my daughter who plays Minecraft every day, she's like, I have no idea what's going on either. I was like, but I was counting on you to explain this to me. And she gave it a -21. She said there was one good character in the whole movie, and out of a scale of 1 to 10, she gave it a -21. And that's her. And she's supposedly the target demo, so you never really know that. Anyway, normally I like give you time to promote, whatever cause you have going on or anything that's on your mind. I know Evan has a couple people he'd like to mention, for like the ongoing thing that we have with Mark Nowotowski and his GoFundMe. But is there anything that you'd like to mention as a cause, or anything you like, as any project or?
Actually, I've been for several years, kind of not as involved as I'd like to be, but with the Wounded Warrior Project. My father was a 21-year veteran in the military. My grandfather served in Europe during World War II. my great grandfather in World War I. So I always say,
And
those
thank
guys
you to
fought.
them for their service. Thank
Right,
you to
yeah,
them for their
they
service.
fought so I didn't have to, and unfortunately we have a nation now that seems to talk really big about patriotism and taking care of those that have protected us, and yet we have homeless veterans on the streets, or we have people who can't get their medicine, their treatment. We owe those people a lifetime debt, and that's why I've always tried to support Wounded Warriors. The
Excellent.
Wounded Warrior Project, I should say.
Excellent. Evan, why don't you go and promote your shtick, your spiel?
My book is Wrestling Rings, Blackboards, and Movie Sets, 100 plus stories about my life. My father was a wounded medic in World War II. He was shot on the battlefield, and he would wake up screaming during his life.
I can imagine how horrible that was.
And he helped free a concentration camp. He did the clerical in Germany. He said they were, skeletons, basically, living skeletons walking out of that concentration camp. And one of the prisoners drew a picture of him that I have on my wall to this day. So, our parents and grandparents greatly sacrificed, and it's pretty disgraceful that we forget our veterans and ageism in general. Ageism. People hurl the word, he's old, she's old, like it's a curse. And I was doing Tai Chi and Qigong and yoga this morning at the park. Most of the people there, they're Asian seniors. And when you get to know them, this one was a famous architect. This one was a famous actress. This one was a noted professor, noted writer, doctor. People look at him, oh, look at this little old man, because in America, we don't respect our elders. So it's a shame. It really is a shame. And as I get older, I'm like, if you're some asshole that sits on social media all day and vents, and somebody else is a distinguished, person who's done all kinds of amazing things, just because they're old does not negate it. So anyway, that's my vent for the evening.
And let's mention Mark Nowatarski's.
Speaking of getting older, Mark Nowatarski lost his wife a couple of weeks ago. Mark directed the Chic documentary and the Detroit Battles.
Yeah, speaking of, and St. Louis, documentary. And he needs help to bury his wife. Indie filmmakers are not rich for the most part. So that's ongoing. Mark, Nowotarski, Mark Nowatarski, good guy. And you can find the link on our Facebook page. You can find it on our Facebook page. And please, if you
we're
can,
a community. We're a community.
We're trying to help.
Community, the indie film community. So please help if you can, and if you can't, share it. Doesn't take much to move your wrist.
It's true.
Share it.
And any amount helps. So Ryan, next year when I do my spring baseball show, I will remember to bring you on, because I definitely want to get your points of view on it, especially if you're still on the Giants. I wouldn't blame you if you just dropped us and went to another. But we'll be back. We'll be back. We'll be a better team next year. I guarantee you. No, I can't guarantee.
Let me tell you real quick my two legendary baseball stories. I was there live. I was there for the Pete Rose, Bud Harrelson brawl. I was there. And I was also there. This is a great story. Bob Moose for the Pirates is throwing a no-hitter against the Mets. I'm at Shea Stadium. And my grandfather, who was not a baseball fan, he just happened to be there. It was the first game he ever went to. My father took him. He thinks this is like every day of the week somebody's throwing a no-hitter. So Roberto Clemente, the great Roberto Clemente, makes a diving catch to save Bob Moose's no-hitter, this unbelievable catch. And the Met fans are cheering that he made the catch because they wanted to see a no-hitter. So the punchline to the story, within a few years, Bob Moose dies in a car wreck, and Clemente died in a plane crash doing humanitarian work. So, you never know how things are going to turn out.
Yeah, or
That
what
was a
you're going to see on the
glorious
field.
day for both of them, and then they
Yeah.
both met with tragedy not that long after.
You got to appreciate what you see when you see it. Anyway, guys, it's great to have you on, Ryan. I hope it's not a whole year, so get you in on the springtime next year. But have a great
Thanks,
remainder
Ryan.
of the summer and Labor Day weekend and all that stuff, and all the best to your family.
Thank you very much. All the best to you guys. And anytime, just hit me up. It's always a pleasure to talk to you guys. You know that.
Great. Have a great evening. We'll see everyone next week. Good night.